Hello, I'm Stephen Carpenter, and this is my psychological analysis for Psychology 1101 for Nicole Crawley over Ted Bundy. He was born November 24th, 1946, in Vermont, and his mother was Eleanor Cowell, and his biological father was believed to be Lord Lloyd Marshall, but he had a stepfather too. That would come in his life later. He was raised up where he thought his mother was his sister, and this secrecy caused him a lot of confusion with his identity. For his first few years, he lived with his grandparents in Philadelphia, but his grandfather was violent and had controlling behaviors, and he would later move to Tacoma at 4, and he lived in a middle-class environment. And he would take his stepfather's last name, which was Bundy. He had a lot of isolation from the people around him, and he had a fascination with crime stories and violent imagery. Early in his life, he would steal and break rules and laws, and it was difficult for him to find friends. He performed well academically in college, but later he would go far downhill as time went on. He had a relationship with a woman named Stephanie Brooks, but that ended abruptly, and this lost relationship caused him a bunch of emotional insecurity. Through 1972 through 73, he was a volunteer crisis counselor. He acted normal to others on the inside, but on the deep down inside, he had violent tendencies, where he built this type of double life, and he would manipulate any type of relationship that was him with any other type of woman he found. That, going back to that romantic loss, it caused a bunch of instability, and that led to periods of unstable employment and this growing dependency where he wanted to manipulate and control others. He also had a very compulsive and pornography use, and his secret criminal experimentation, or what he was doing, secret criminal activities, was slowly growing in frequency as time went on. He began killing in Washington in 1974, where he would target young women that resembled his ex, and he would pretend to either have injuries or pretend to be an officer of the law to make people lower their guard, and so he could trick them and lure them in as a victim. He was very organized too. He would have crimes across Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Florida, etc. He would use a Volkswagen Beetle for his abduction vehicle, and he was very organized, and he had roughly 30 plus victims. He was arrested in 1975 after a kidnapping attempt on Carol de Ranch, where when they searched his car, they found handcuffs, a crowbar, ski mask, and other tools for criminal activity. He was linked through other crimes through multiple sources of sketches and evidence and other things as well. He would escape from jail. He would escape from jail twice in 1977, and after that second attempt, he caused more murders in Florida. He was then captured again during a traffic stop in 1978. Those murders led to the Chi Omega murders led to a Florida trial, where he would represent himself in court, and evidence would be brought up from those sketches, bite marks, witnesses, fibers, where he would then be sentenced to death by electric scare. He had multiple death sentences, and his charming personality, it fascinated the public, you could say, and they were split between a bunch of people being fans of him in this sick, demonic way, I would say, and others that hated him for all he did. The media will label him as an all-American killer, going back to how he would kill through multiple different states. The technology during the 1970s wasn't that good. They relied on blood typing, hair fiber for the standard, but blood typing wasn't really that useful in his type of crimes. But hair fiber microscopy was used a lot for evidence against him, along with tool mark, fiber analysis, and bite mark analysis were used a lot too. No digital databases exist yet, which slowed this down a lot. They relied on communication via phone or mail. Records were stored locally in paper files, and there was limited interstate pattern tracking. He had very slow communication and very like inconsistent too, you could say. There are very few public cameras, and there was no like GPS or vehicle tracking at the time. Officers relied on witness descriptions from patrol logs and other things. I would say that he would be a psychopathy because his organized planning, manipulation, and no empathy really contributed to this a lot. I would diagnose him with ASPD, which because he exhibited patterns of violating the rights of others. He was deceitful, he was impulsive, aggressive, he was irresponsible, he had no remorse, as he said on interviews before. I would also diagnose him MPD because of his constant need for admiration, no empathy, and fantasies of the success and entitlement, and also arrogance. He believed he was superior to everyone else, to police and prosecutors. You could also diagnose him with paraphilic disorder, I would say, because of this intense sexual arousal he would get from corpses, necrophilic acts, you could say, which causes a lot of distress, and he acts on these urges and impulses. Some prevention and treatment options I recommend is chemotherapy for this to reduce his manipulative like emotions and wanting to constantly manipulate and control others, and also early attachment focused intervention to improve empathy and social growth. Also multi-systematic therapy, which would prevent these chronic criminal behaviors. And there's also impulse control, anger relation training, which would strengthen his control over those impulses and those violent tendencies so he could reduce them some. And overall, after researching about him, I can say that I learned a lot more about theories of personality can relate back to the real world cases, such as in Personality Chapter 9, Last Mind Development. It helped me just better understand and analyze his behavior. And it showed me how these patterns can contribute to criminal behavior later in life, all these early signs. And Chapter 15 expanded on this some and showed me how interventions could have just completely nullified and slowed down or helped with this quite a lot. And this project overall has helped me a lot with appreciation and understanding for psychology and others. Here are my references for my peer-reviewed journals, my book citations, and forensic sources. Thank you so much.